New to Peacemaker's Horrors of War? Let me teach you how to play! Welcome to Peacemaker's Horrors of War video tutorial. I'm Sami Laakso, the designer of the game. In this video I will teach you how to play it. In Peacemakers you try to achieve peace between warring animal folk armies. The game has 6 unique scenarios and each one presents a new challenging conflict to resolve. You can play cooperatively or solo, but the rules and goal always stay the same. Find ways to lower both sides' motivation until they're ready to make peace. However, you lose if a side's motivation falls too far, causing them to surrender. If this is your first game with a fresh copy and you haven't completed the instructions in the welcome letter yet, you have to do that first. It's really straightforward. Simply follow the steps here to organize all components, including the cards based on their labels, into their correct spots in the insert. With that done, we will take a look at the 6 scenarios in Peacemaker's Horrors of War. They can be played and replayed in any order, but we do recommend you to play scenario 1 first. That is the one we will set up in this video. All scenarios have these purple notes which remind you of the various rules. Mostly there are about scenario-specific ones, but the first scenario also has reminders of a few common rules. The game includes a scenario log, which you can use to keep track which scenarios and optional challenges you have beaten. More about those challenges later. Now we can move on to setup. In our example, we are going to set up the first scenario for 2 players. Please note that scenarios often have additional setup instructions. Make sure to check those on the scenarios page. First, open the appropriate spreads on the 2 map books. In this case, that's L1 and R1 for the left and right map books respectively. Leave space below the books for discard piles. The unit portraits over here have these group icons below them. For each icon, like this star shape with an A inside it, attach a base of that shape to a unit figure matching the portrait. Place each figure on its marked starting space on the map, facing the direction shown on the space. Both sides will keep fighting as long as they have motivation left. We keep track of their motivations with glass beads on these tracks. Place a bead on both of the highlighted spots. Take out cards for your chosen scenario and separate them by card pack. For each deck slot here, shuffle its matching cards and place them on the slot. Now each player chooses an adventurer to play as. We'll choose the Goldtuskday Gecko Tambatro and the Fennec Fox Akesan for this scenario. Place the figures on the starting space marked by the 10th icon. Each adventurer has different strengths, but for your first game, just pick whichever you like the most. Place all fortification and damage tokens as well as the die within everyone's reach. If you somehow run out of either of these tokens during play, use a suitable substitute. Take both the horror and resource decks and give them a quick shuffle. As the final step to the setup, let's deal out starting hands for everyone. Draw 4 cards from the resource deck and divide them evenly between players before looking at them. In our example 2-player game, both get 2 cards. If there's 3 players, you choose who gets the extra card. The setup is now complete and we can move on to the gameplay. Here's how the game flows. Each round begins with an adventure phase, where you play cards to influence the armies and the battlefield in many ways. After that comes the army phase, where the armies resolve their orders to fight each other. And lastly comes the status phase, where you check if the game ends in victory or defeat, or if you begin another round. In the adventure phase, you can take actions by playing resource cards from your hand. There is no player order. Anyone can take an action as long as any preceding action has been resolved. You can also take any number of actions as long as you have cards in your hand. Keep your hand of cards face up in front of you, or alternatively, you can keep them private to focus on your own cards. Each action you take requires playing a resource card from your hand and choosing one of its available actions. Each card has up to 4 icon rows: Survey, Travel, Fortify and Delegate. They also have a written effect here at the bottom called a scheme. So each card has up to 5 available actions. You choose one of them when you play the card. One of the icon rows or the scheme. An icon row can also have this extra card icon. If you play the card for that action, you get to draw a new card from the resource deck after resolving other icons on that row. Resource cards are discarded when played, with a few exceptions, which we'll get to. You can freely look through this and any other discard piles and face-up cards at any time. Just make sure you don't reorder any decks or discard piles. If the resource deck runs out and you need to draw from it, shuffle its discard pile to form a new deck. In the rare case the resource deck and discard pile are empty at the same time, you simply cannot draw new cards. Like this card's scheme, most actions can only target nearby things. Nearby means something sharing a space with your figure, like another adventure or an army unit. If you have a nearby unit, you are also nearby that army and their orders. More about those a bit later. Let's go over the 5 available actions. The first is called Survey, and it lets you reveal army's upcoming orders. To survey, you have to have a nearby unit, like the Macav here, and play a card with this survey icon. Then choose one order deck from that unit's army, one of these 2 Macav order decks down here in this case, flip its topmost face down card and leave it face up. If you'd now survey again and wanted to choose the left deck again, you'd simply flip the next face down card like this without reordering any cards. If an order deck has multiple face up cards, it can be helpful to leave their tops visible like this. If you survey and all order cards from the chosen deck are already face up, first shuffle its discard pile and place them face down under the face up cards, and then flip the topmost face down card. Order decks can have a mix of both face up and face down cards. As mentioned earlier, you can look through all face up cards in decks and discard piles at any time. The next action is called Travel, and it lets you move on the battlefield to reach different units and other adventures. To travel, play a resource card with one or more of these travel icons. For each icon, you can move your adventure one space to any adjacent space on the map. You and all army units can move across water spaces like this one. Only spaces you cannot move to are impossible spaces like this in later scenarios. The third available action is called Fortify, and it lets you place fortifications on the map to protect units. To fortify, play a resource card with one or more of these fortify icons. For each icon, place one new fortification token on your space. Just note that fortifications cannot be placed on water spaces. Fortifications cannot be moved by you or the army units. They are destroyed by incoming attacks, which we'll go through a bit later in the army phase. The fourth available action is called Delegate, and it lets you give a card to another player. To delegate, play a resource card with this delegate icon. Instead of discarding the card, give it to a nearby adventurer. You might do this, for example, when one of your cards is more powerful when played by another player, which we'll learn next. The last and most varied action is called Scheme, and it lets you manipulate the armies and the battlefield in various ways. To scheme, play a resource card and resolve its written effect here at the bottom as completely as possible. Any adventurer can use any scheme, but if your adventure's icon is on the effect, you can also use the colored effect bonus. So this card lets you heal an army unit for up to 4, but if you weren't the gecko, you could instead heal only up to 2. Most schemes' effects are instant, but if a scheme has this ongoing keyword, its effect lasts for a while. Place the card near the area it affects as a reminder and discard it only after the effect has been fully resolved. For example, if you play this defensive spirit for its scheme, place it here next to the units it affects. If the effect gives you any options, you have to make them when you play the card, like whether to give 2 or 3 defense with this card if you are the Fennec Fox. Then anyone can take the next action as normal. There's no hand limit, and you get to keep all unused cards in your hand between rounds. It can be wise to save up some cards, as it means you'll have more options available next round. When no one wants to play more cards this round, we move to Refresh. Draw 4 cards from the resource deck. If any of them are horror cards marked by this dark broken back, place them aside for now. Then randomly divide the drawn resource cards evenly between all players. If you cannot divide them evenly, choose together who should gain more. I'll choose to give 1 extra to the Fennec Fox in this example, as she has less cards in hand. Don't pay too much attention to your new resource cards yet, because you cannot use them until the next round. Lastly, if you drew any horror cards, reveal and resolve them now one by one. Before we move to the army phase, let's take a look at how the horror cards work. Whenever a unit is defeated, more about that later, place a new horror card from the horror deck on top of the resource deck. Whenever you draw 1 or more horrors from the resource deck, set them aside. After completing the effect which drew the cards, reveal and resolve them one by one. Each horror affects the card's topmost listed adventure in play. In our example, this would affect the Fennec Fox. The cards from the separate Shared Nightmares mini expansion are an exception. They have general effects instead of using adventure priorities. Like schemes, horror effects can be either immediate or have the ongoing keyword. In both cases, when the effect has been fully resolved, place the card on the resource discard pile. It will haunt you for the rest of the game. When the resource discard pile gets reshuffled, any horrors in it are shuffled as well. You may not look through the resource deck to see where the horrors are. So the horrors both deny resource card draws and have additional negative effects. You don't want to let too many units die or things might get out of hand. After the adventure phase, the army phase begins, where armies act according to the orders without player input. Place 1 card from the top of each order deck face up on top of its discard pile. If a deck has no cards left, shuffle its discard pile first to form a new deck. Each pair of cards, the left and right halves, forms a new order for its respective army. This one is the order for the Macavs and this for the Ocelots. The Animal Folk's unique effects are typically on the left half, including most effects which raise or lower motivation. On the other hand, the right half dictates what a single group in its army attempts to do, like move, defend, or attack. Both halves have speed values, shown here with the lightning bolt icons. When you draw the new orders, determine each order's total speed by adding the values of both halves together. Here, the Macavs have a speed of 4.6 and the Ocelots a speed of 4.2. Then we resolve each order one at a time from the highest to the lowest speed. In this case, the Macavs order is resolved before the Ocelots. Unless the cards say otherwise, resolve their effects from top to bottom, the left half before the right. Units in the game always have these bases, which show which group they belong to, the circle, star, or gear group. The order affects a single group, shown here with these icons. Use the leftmost icon unless that group no longer has units on the map. In such a case, use the next group with units. For example, this order affects the circle group, but if all circle group Macavs were defeated, it would affect these star Macavs instead. Let's go through the 2 most common things the army units can do: moving and attacking. First, movement. When a group moves, each unit in it simultaneously tries to move 1 space forward or backward, depending on the effect. Units can move to a space containing allies, but cannot move to a space containing enemies. Never change the direction a unit faces unless an effect tells you to. Some spaces on the map have this motivation icon. If a side's last unit on this space moves away or is defeated, lower their motivation by 1. Likewise, increase a side's motivation by 1 if they move their first unit to this space. If a unit starts the game in the tower, it is already included in their starting motivation. Next, let's look how unit attacks work. Attacking uses the unit statistics shown next to each unit's portrait here. This is the unit's range, showing how far away they can attack. Like most units, the Macav soldiers can attack 2 spaces away. This is the unit's offense, which tells how much damage they can deal with their attacks. and this is the unit's health. If it has taken this much or more damage, it is defeated. Any value which is different from the standard is highlighted, like the Ocelot Archer's 3 range or Commander Sotsiamak's 8 health. When a group attacks, each unit in it first chooses an enemy as their target, and then they all attack at the same time. Units never target the adventurers with their attacks. When units seek targets for their attacks, they have 3 prioritization rules. First, they will prioritize the closest enemy, then the one with least remaining health, and if both of those result in a tie, they will choose their targets randomly. Let's go through those 3 rules in more detail. Let's say that this Ocelot is the attacker. Both of these Macavs are within its range of 2. This one is closer, so it would target that one. But let's imagine they were arranged like this. When there are multiple units at the same range, the attacker prioritizes units right in front of it, then continues clockwise around. In our case, the Ocelot would attack this Macaw. One final example, this time with a forest. Units in them have stealth and can only be targeted from adjacent spaces. Even though this Macaw is within this archer's range of 3 and in front of it, the archer would still target this Macaw here as they cannot see the one in the forest. With multiple enemies on the same space, the attacker targets the one with the least amount of health left. In this example, the soldier would get attacked. Even though the commander has 2 damage, he still has 6 health left compared to the soldier's 5. With multiple enemies on the same space with the same amount of health left, randomly choose the target using the die. For example, if you have 2 units on the space, you can assign values 1 to 6 for one and 7 to 12 for the other. If multiple attacks target the units in the same space, use the same result for all of them. Once we have determined targets for the attacks, we need to resolve them. The attacker's offense defines incoming damage. If multiple units attack the same enemy at the same time, add their offenses together into a single attack. For example, both of these Macaw soldiers are attacking this Ocelot Archer for a total of 6 damage. However, before applying the damage, we lower it first by the target's defense and then by fortifications. In our example, the rock formation this Ocelot is standing on gives it 1 defense, reducing the incoming damage from 6 to 5. Next, we remove fortification tokens from the target space up to the amount of remaining damage. Each removed token lowers the damage by 1. Our Ocelot has 3 fortifications on its space, so we remove them all and reduce the incoming damage from 5 to 2. Finally, we place that amount of damage tokens near the target. Now the Ocelot has 3 health left, but let's imagine it didn't have those fortifications and would have taken 3 more damage. Then its health would have dropped to 0 and would have been defeated. Whenever a unit is defeated, we remove its damage tokens and place it here on a spot for defeated units of its side. This also lowers their side's motivation by 1 and adds a new horror card on top of the resource deck, as shown by these reminders here. Be careful though, if the defeated unit was the last of its side or a leader, marked with a yellow name banner and a star like Sotsiamak here, their side's motivation falls directly to 0. If a side's motivation ever lowers to 0, it cannot be raised by any means, essentially meaning you have lost once we move to the status phase. If you don't remember the attacking rules right away, no worries. The back of the rulebook has a handy round overview reference, as well as all icons and keywords. After all orders have been resolved, the status phase begins. In it you check if you win, lose or continue playing. If both sides' motivations are on green, they negotiate peace and you win. If either side's motivation is 0, they surrender and you lose as the bloodshed will continue with no peace in sight. If neither of those happens, you simply begin a new round. Note that if both sides' motivations are on green before the status phase, you still need to play those phases, even if it means you might lose. You only win or lose during the status phase. When the game ends, sort all cards back to their correct sections in the insert based on these labels. Also, if you won, don't forget to mark it on the scenario log. Like I said earlier, the game comes with 6 unique scenarios that you can play and replay in any order. Each one depicts a unique conflict for you to resolve, with different maps, armies, cards, and so on. In addition to the scenario-specific rules, make sure to check out the scenario strategy tips on its page before playing it. The first scenario features some general advice to get you going. Once you think you've gotten good at the game, you can try each scenario's challenges. Can you achieve peace without any units getting defeated? How about with a bunch of extra horrors thrown in? Check them out in the rulebook if you want to really test your peacemaking skills. Each scenario also has its own introductory story, and you can find the game's backstory on pages 10 and 11. Check them out if you want to immerse yourself. Now you know how to play the game. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments down below. You can also find links to our friendly community Discord server and official FAQ in the video description. I hope you enjoy your time playing Peacemakers Horrors of War.